Oh, this is about to collapse, I think. It's a very soft dip here. Eaten by termites, anicca. Everything is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control. This is what we have to understand and know in order to be seeing everything clearly, with clear vision of reality, of truth. Namaste, hello, and welcome back to the shade of the banyan tree here in South India. Do you know already, this coming Friday, the 29th of, what is it, September? Yeah, September. So nearly the end of September this month is the full moon. And this represents the Uposatha day, our Buddhist holy day. And the having passed of 2/3 of this Vasa, this monsoon season, or monks and nuns rains retreat, where we stay in one place. I've been staying here in Ketohili, Karnataka, South India, for 3 months. 89 days it is this year. Not that I'm counting the days. It's been a pleasant stay and continues to be. Not without its difficulties, but only ordinary difficulties of being a foreigner in a different culture, in a different land, with the getting used to different things. In fact, I think that's one of the questions. If I get round to questions and I'm able to stop waffling. But this is significant that 2/3 of this Vasa is through. And what comes to mind excuse me, is what next? We're always trying to, in our practice, really get rid of this idea of what's next, because it is what we have now in this present moment, and dealing with that, enjoying that, accepting that, and just that, anicca, dukkha, anatta, practicing morality, sila, meditation, samadhi, and developing wisdom, wholesome mind states, and reducing our unwholesome mind states, panya. This is our practice to understand those faculties of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta. And that requires us to bring our attention, our focus, our awareness, our minds and thoughts into the present moment, without too much procrastination, or papancha as we call it in the Pali language, about future events, what we're going to be doing in the next few days, weeks, months, years, decades ahead. Because this is so uncertain. It's just imagination, isn't it? We don't know how long we're going to live. A dear friend of mine, just this last few days, died at 11 o'clock in the morning having his cup of coffee. Dare I mention coffee? Just like that. He's 58, not much older than me. We've kind of grown up together, but he wasn't expecting that. Nobody was. Who does? But this happens. Only a few weeks ago, another friend, not from my own country, but a Russian whom I've got to know in another place where I stay in India, quite a bit younger than me, I think probably in his late 40s, again, just like that on a train, dropped dead, like that. Not dropped, he was sitting, but died. A couple of weeks before that, someone else also. And then before that, the same time, 4 people since I've been on this rains retreat, either my age or younger, that are friends of mine, have died. So we shouldn't plan too much into the future. We should enjoy what's happening now. Now, I think that's common to all people's faiths and ideas. It's not just a Buddhist thing. We don't know what will happen next, so enjoy the moment. But there does come time when we have to make plans. But that doesn't mean that plans have to affect the enjoyment of the present moment and what you're experiencing right here and now. We can use time management as we do in business in our lives, to ensure that we spend time planning, but we can segregate that into parts of the day. So we don't sit around dreaming about what we're doing next all of the time. We make the plan, we put things in place, and then we get on with now, knowing that we've done everything possible to ensure that what we intend for the future will occur, and the transition from now into the future will be smooth through adequate planning and ensuring the correct resources are in place. So I've been doing that, being as we are coming up to this 2/3 of the way through the Vassa stage. The full moon of September on Friday means that after my trip to my monastery in the city for our recitation of the Bhikkhu training rules, as usual, the Patimokkha, I'll return here. Then we have 1 month or 30 days, so 15 days until the new moon, and then following that another 15 days until the full moon of October, when this Vassa monsoon retreat ends. This is called Pavarana. Pavarana, spelled P-A-V-A-R-A-N-A, with some lines over the A's to make them R's, not as. Pararanas, I'm not quite sure which way round it goes or how to say it correctly. However, this is a significant day. It signifies the end of the Vassa. We just at that time seek forgiveness of the people we've been spending the time with for any actions of body, speech and mind that we may have done to offend, upset, or wrongfully represent ourselves in any way during that time we've been staying. And they similarly, whether they're senior to us or junior to us, it doesn't matter, seek forgiveness back. It's not just a formality, it's a genuine thing. We do this as Buddhists whenever we stay somewhere, or even if it's just visiting someone for a few moments. Some very nice Upasaka came to see me the other day, and before he left he said, please forgive me for anything I've done of body, speech and mind that may have been incorrect or anything that I've interpreted wrongly from what you've said. And I said, well, in turn, please also forgive me. This is a routine that Buddhists go through of just repairing the ground and preparing a future visit in a way, but meaning that you've accepted that you don't do everything right. There are problems. There are obstacles whenever you stay somewhere, especially for such a long time as 3 months, a retreat season like this, in the company of others. There's going to be maybe a little friction through maybe communication problems. Even when there is a language barrier, there is going to be some problems, more so maybe, or maybe less so when there's fluent language. In fact, I actually get on quite well with the language barrier, because it's very difficult to say the wrong thing if you can't speak the language. So you're more mindful of your actions and less having to worry about speech, because there is none. But this process, this Pavarana, is not just a formality. It's important that we leave a place with not the view of coming back so as we can sort out a problem when we return, but we leave it as if we're never to return. This is similarly how we, or how I certainly treat wherever I'm staying. Even if I'm staying here for the 3 months, every time I go somewhere else, like to the city, to the monastery on these particular Upasaka days, I leave my room as if I'm not returning. I take everything with me, everything that I own. That's not hard to do, because I wear all of my clothing that I own in the world, and I can carry everything else in one small bag which can fit into my pindapart, my alms bowl. So it's quite easy to do that. But even if I had more or less, it is important that I leave that room as if I'll never return. So I make sure the bathroom is cleaned, and as if a new guest is arriving tomorrow. My room is swept out as if a new guest is arriving tomorrow. even though I know I'm coming back in a few hours. So if I die on the train, if I die having a cup of coffee like my friends, then no one has to go and clear out and sort out my mess behind me. This is not just a practical thing, it's part of the practice. Now, I wonder if you thought this, when you look at someone in terms of their immediate environment, in the workplace, for instance, their desk, or if you work in a different environment and maybe not at a desk but even walking around, their appearance. Now, I'm not being critical of anybody, this is just an observation that I've made over many years of working with people. If you look and you see a clutter, a mess around somebody that is owing to them. I mean, obviously someone could be put in a situation that is in a mess, and then you might see them tidying it up as best they can. But if you see someone piling this here, piling that there, collecting this, collecting that, with no regard to really keeping things in any kind of order, how do you think that reflects on their actual mind state? Now, I said a little earlier that we are practicing this to develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states. How are your mind states if you're surrounded by clutter, surrounded by things? How is your mind state if you live in a not a clean, a dirty environment? Now, we cannot help always the environment around us, but we can make inroads towards tidying it up, not leaving litter. If we have something to eat, we clean it up, we put it away after us, packaging, things we eat out of cups and plates and things. So often you've seen, all of us have seen, people who have little regard for these things and can just push things aside and seemingly carry on unfazed by this detritus building up around them. Now, this is all well and good. One could say, oh, well, that's because they're not fussy, they don't have OCD, they're carefree, they're laissez-faire, they're relaxed, they're very chilled out, man. You know, they've got a peaceful mind. But what does it tell you about the state of that mind, the cleanliness of that mind, the tidiness or the organizational structure of that mind? If everything externally, through their actions of body and speech, is saying otherwise, it necessarily figures that the results of the quality of their mind will also be similar. So we say forgiveness of acts of body, speech and mind. If you're a messy person, I'm thinking you have a messy mind. Now, that could be a judgmental thing to say, but from my point of view, it is just a logical thing to understand. Now, we all have tendencies to possibly leave a little bit of mess or push a bit of something under the carpet to hide it away, to tidy up superficially, to clean things or make things look superficially okay because they're unseen. But this is something that is seen by yourself. And the most important judge we have is ourselves. No one else really cares, frankly, whether you're good or whether you're bad. We're not in Buddhism praying to a god watching us keeping a book. Father Christmas doesn't have a list. This boy is naughty, this boy is bad, this girl is naughty, this girl is bad. This kind of idea. The person we affect when we aren't keeping sila, when we aren't adhering to as close to as possible the precepts and keeping this morally virtuous way of life, the person we affect most, as apart from people directly affected by our wrong actions, is ourselves. And I would say more so than others, because others are once removed. If you say something nasty to somebody, if you do something nasty to somebody, if they are of a very right and stable view and mind state, they can say, that's really their problem, not mine. I'm not accepting what they say, and they can walk away. Even if you hurt them, they can say, really, that's hurting them more than it's hurting me. You can say that if you are of right view, because you know that that person doing wrong is suffering. So this is why Pavarana is such an important occasion that's coming up, to always reflect upon forgiveness and the way you've behaved, what you've done, and the way you are. And this doesn't just apply to Buddhist monks in retreat or even Buddhists. This applies to everybody in your workplace. Keep your desk tidy, even if it's difficult to do so, and even if your mind is a mess. By keeping your surroundings tidy and around you, your mind will tidy itself up, like acting in accordance with sila, moral virtue, behaving well in all of your actions of body and speech will result in your mind improving. It's easier to do it that way round than improve your mind and hope that the speech and body will improve. It seems back to front, but it does work this way. You've probably seen, maybe if you're on YouTube watching this, other videos of sort of Zen monasteries with this very clean, tidy, neat little approach of visualization on the... I haven't really looked at much of this stuff, but I can envisage, I've been to Zen monasteries, they're very, it's all very neat and tidy, no clutter. Not like my little temple here that I'm really struggling with even going into, because there's so much going on in there. They've just put so many flowers in there, which are now of course all rotting and dying. It's just signifies to me untidy minds and untidy, and I can go in there and clean it all up and change it all around, as I do quite often, but it will soon be filled with more things, because it's very much part of the culture here. They like things, they like objects of veneration, whereas perhaps coming from my background and my training, I like as little as possible in the way of my veneration. I like a clean approach, a clean desk. An empty desk means you finished your work, doesn't it, when you are in business? And what a better state of mind, what better state of mind is there than that at the end of the day you've cleared your desk. Okay, it'll be full again tomorrow, but you've cleared it for now. So this is an approach we can all adopt and adhere to in order to help tidy our minds. You've heard of Feng Shui, or whatever it is, where people put their objects in their room all in certain positions. Now, you could call this all hocus pocus and nonsense and magic and mystery, and maybe I do think of it a little bit that way, but it has its place. It's a way of practically organizing and tidying things, objects, physical aspects of your life, which in turn affects the tidiness and cleanliness of the mind. And this is very important. So planning into the future isn't something to be totally abandoned with an attitude of I don't care. It's a case of not mixing it up with the present moment. This is what we're talking about in this practice when we say here and now. It's not, oh, well, I just don't care about the future then, what happens next, because here and now is so wonderful, watching the breath in samadhi. Of course, we have to know that there are duties we need to fulfill, responsibilities we have, and continue with those, whether they be with our family or with our workplace colleagues or with our own survival. In my case, as a monk living alone in foreign lands, it's very much about just that, my own survival. I don't really have any duties or responsibilities to any community. To some extent there are Vinaya requirements of permissions and this and that, which I'm a little bit too laissez-faire, relaxed on, I suppose, with regards to where I go next, but largely this is as a result of immigration conditions in countries where I'm travelling with regards to visas. In Buddhist countries, not so much of a problem. In non-Buddhist countries, they're quite strict in some places. In this country, particularly strict, and particularly with people of my origin, British citizens. We're not treated well here as far as immigration is concerned. I'll say no more than that on that subject, but it's a sad fact of life that the past is not forgotten here. It's brought very much into the present and imposed upon British tourism. Everything's made quite difficult. Not the people at all. The people are so accommodating, so kind, so the most hospitable people you can find. But the bureaucracy behind travelling here for any longer than a few weeks on a holiday is very difficult. And this is not the kind of country you come to for a holiday. There's too much of it to see. You need a long time here. It doesn't have specific tourist destinations for just laying on a beach and sunbathing, that kind of holiday for 2 weeks, 14 days, 10 days or 7. It's a place where you come to travel and spend some time here and get to know the culture. It's a place where people have grown up in the past through their sort of gap years and then gone on to become doctors, nurses, they've become politicians, they've become famous people. Some of the most significant people throughout history in the political world, in the business world, in the entertainment world, celebrities. You look into their past, they would have spent time here in India, learning from its culture, experiencing its culture. Unfortunately, today, modern day India ignores that a little bit and just sees the British citizens, and to some extent maybe the Americans not so much, but as just layabout hippies who come here and don't actually spend any money and just live here cheaply and stay as long as possible. That is the case, but those layabout hippies that stay as long as possible have gone on to be very significant people in the world, whom then have contributed quite considerably to this country, and their children have come back to visit. So it's a long-term planning thing, and this is where this relationship between our countries needs to really be developed. So I shouldn't really talk about that. It's kind of not monk subject matter. It would be considered inappropriate speech. It's almost getting on towards the realms of politics. But I speak of it in reference as to my own planning, as to where I can stay. I am not able to stay here. No English monks are able to stay here permanently, as we are perhaps in Thailand, where we get a monk's visa, or other countries where coming and going is a little more flexible. It can be done, but it's difficult, and there is no understanding through immigration as to what your purpose is. So if you're honest with them, they say no. And I'm honest with them, and they do say no. When I arrive, I don't have an itinerary of tourist venues, the Golden Triangle, the Taj Mahal, the blah blah blah, the blah blah blah, to go and visit. I don't have a hotel to stay in. I don't have a return ticket. I don't have these things that make me an acceptable tourist. So this time around I was held for an hour in an office, unable to leave, and then interrogated before I was able to leave the airport. And this cannot go on. It makes my travels here uncomfortable and impractical from a point of view of a monk. So as much as I'd love to live here for the rest of my days in parts of India that I love and respect so much, sadly, until things change, that will never be the case. So come the end of the Vasa, my plan was to return to Thailand, where I came from, but in the interim period I have come to think and of the opinion that it's probably time to go on Tudong. Now Tudong is a Thai expression or word that comes from the word Dutanga. Dutanga is a Pali word, are the ascetic practices the Buddha does allow monks to keep and uphold. Now, he said he doesn't want his monks to be totally ascetic, as in he experienced through his 6 years of asceticism, becoming emaciated, just eating 1 grain of rice a day and torturing himself. He didn't want that. He also doesn't want monks to have a life of opulence. It's the middle path. Now, the middle path, admittedly, these days to most will be seeming along certainly more on the side of asceticism compared to modern day life. But if you look at life in Asia, in these rural parts, it's not so. It's quite comfortable by comparison to some people's ways of life, even to this day. That is what makes it such a beautiful country to experience, not to just holiday in, not to just stay in, but to really experience, because you can go back in time here with very little effort. You can walk not very far and be hundreds of years ago into the past, if not thousands of years ago, and see farming techniques and animal husbandry and everything going on as it would have thousands of years ago, even in the time of the Buddha. Still, that can be experienced and seen, and it's beautiful in its nature here in this wonderful land of Bharat, as I think they're now wanting to call it, India. Beautiful Bharat, as opposed to Incredible India. That was their last tourist campaign, Incredible India. Maybe the new one will be Beautiful Bharat. Blessed Bharat, I don't know. But this is a wonderful place. And now I've lost the track of what I was saying. Yes, so 2 Dhutanga practices, of which there are 13. One of them includes, in the Pali word, charaka, which is wandering, walking. It means walking. It's like a walking meditation up and down. No, that's not called charaka, is it? I've forgotten the Pali word for that. But anyway, charaka is wandering. So a samana, a wandering monk, just wanders with no intentional place to go, surviving day to day, living outside under a tree like this, the shade of a tree, or in an empty hut, in the forest, in a cave. These are the places that monks can live. Alternatively, in a monastery with a community of monks, or if you're a nun, with a community of nuns. They don't mix. This is what the Buddha prescribed. And this is what's acceptable for us as places to live, or as places to live. Sorry, I distracted a little because they have very loud telephone conversations here. You can't quite hear that, but it was putting me off a little bit. More because I wonder why one has to shout so much. Anyway, so charaka is like tudong. So tudong practice is where we pick up our yam, our bowl, our pindapart, and what we own, our 8 requisites, and we wander off into the distance. I've spent 7 months in the monastery in Thailand, not going anywhere at all, and I've spent at the end of this vasa 3 months here. So what's that? 10 months, so nearly a year, really in one place. I had nothing in between. I literally got on a plane in Bangkok. I was taken by an upasaka there, and then taken to a car to here. When I arrived at Bangalore airport after my ordeal in immigration, brought straight here. And then I've been nowhere else other than back and forth to the city on these upasaka occasions. So I think it's time that I went wandering again on Tudong, but properly this time, not just a couple of days, maybe for a few months. And I am going to go for that purpose to Sri Lanka. We used to call it Ceylon because it still is what they refer to cinnamon, Ceylon tea, a lot of their products, a very beautiful country. I'm not informed, I don't know much about it. I know it has a very rich and long and Buddhist culture. It's a Buddhist country, much like Thailand. It was, as it's closest to India, like Thailand, was where Buddhism went to, where it expanded from India into Sri Lanka, Thailand, and what is now Myanmar, was Burma, those surrounding neighbouring countries, and of course the Himalayas upwards into Tibet and Bhutan and these northern territories. It left India, not really to ever come back properly, but it stayed in those surrounding countries and became very strong, very close to the end of the Buddha's time. So within a few hundred years, a couple of hundred years of the Buddha dying, it became the established religions in those countries, and still is to this day, 2,666, 7 years later. So it's a wonderful place to have the opportunity to visit. I do fortunately have the resources to get me there, and that has been organised on my behalf, a visa and all of this stuff. I have no accommodation officially. I do have a few invitations, so you have to, I think, on the application at least put an address and a contact as to where you're going. So I do have contacts there through kind invitations from people who watch this in Sri Lanka. So that's very nice, that if I was to be in any difficulty, there are people there whom have offered to accommodate me, look after me. But hopefully I can get off the plane, start walking from Colombo, and continue walking from day to day, sleeping wherever I find myself, staying wherever I find myself, under a tree, in the open air, in an empty hut, and maybe on occasions, if the situation is appropriate and it arises, in monasteries that I pass along the way. So that is as far as the planning needs to go. I don't need to plan anything else, because everything else is already planned for us in the training rules the Buddha gives us. We chant every day, Chira Parini Bhutam Pitam, this little chant that bhikkhus chant in respect of the Buddha's training, that we, by adhering to his training rules, are able to lead the holy life. So this Patimokkha of 227 rules we recite again on Friday is my guide, along with the Noble Eightfold Path, which you all know, of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right effort, right mindfulness, right meditation, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, in other words. This practice, this is our route map, our path, our way forward in life, our instructions as monks, specifically as monks, how to live, how to do this Tudong. I don't need anything, just my 8 requisites. I will take a pair of my shoes, they're not shoes, but flip-flops, sandals, because this is only practical these days. Other than that, it'll just be my 3 robes, my belt, my razor, water filter, needle and cotton, my pindapat, my bowl, and razor if I didn't say that. These are our 8 requisites. This is all I need to take. Of course, I will take with me also my passport, and my visa and tickets are going to be on one of these devices. So I will have, as it's kind of a legal requirement these days, these devices in order for me to continue talking to you on a daily basis. As soon as I get a SIM when I arrive, I've hopefully got that ability. It seems okay and much easier there. That is another thing. You cannot get your own SIM here in India. You have to wait until you know people, make village local friends who can get one for you, because they don't trust tourists to have their own SIM. You have to, well, really, you have to lie. Well, I'm not going to lie, so obviously we can't do that, but you cannot just go and get your own SIM here. Like you can in every other country. You cannot do that. You have to know someone who will get one for you in their name. So I have a few people, I know a lot of people here, so I have a few SIMs, obviously different SIMs in different people's names. But then when you want them topped up, you have to go to the shop and get someone to top them up, and there are ways you can do it online, which is what I've got round over the years without telling any fibs. But things like that make it difficult. But the beauty of going to Thailand and Sri Lanka, as soon as you get to the airport, you get a tourist SIM, you get a package, unlimited data, something like that. It costs so many rupees or so many baht, and I'm able to use in those countries Google Pay, so my steward of the account that's run that keeps me supported with these things, it's authorized that if they want to, if some transaction like that needs to go on at the airport, it can all happen very smoothly, very easily, without me having to handle money, go to ATMs, have an upasaka with me. It means I can travel without using money, but still have that, a minimum legal required backup one has to have these days when you visit a country. You see, they need to know when you land you have some financial support. You cannot these days land in a country and if you're asked at immigration, "Oh, I'm a monk, I have nothing." You can in Thailand, yes, they don't expect you to have money. Maybe that is the case in Sri Lanka, but I don't know until I get there. So those provisions are in place. I will hopefully immediately as I arrive there, and this is talking quite ahead now, I don't know how I got onto this subject. It's not what I planned again to talk about today, but as we're talking about it, I'll continue, or I'm talking about it, I'll continue. So that is what will happen, and I will hopefully be able to talk to you the same way, still continue to review your comments, talk about those and your questions, and also share with you the experience of real Tudong, real Charaka. Not 2 weeks going from this place to that place. This is Tudong as it's often seen these days. This is Charaka as it's seen these days. But I'm not going to any particular place. I'll leave here with no destination other than the country I'm going to, and I'm going to wander for as long as I'm legally allowed to do so, which visa-wise is a long time in Sri Lanka, so I'll have no problems in that respect, and will hopefully be fed by the local people, and in return for that be able to offer the local people the presence of a foreign monk with maybe a slightly different perspective on what is their cultural religion and constitution, but coming from a Western background it will be no doubt slightly different, but not so different, because everything is based on the same aspect of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, which is where I began speaking today. So I am, dare I say it, looking forward to that. Of course, enjoying this present moment, but now having made a decision, actually it wasn't really a decision, I've let you decide where I'm going. I had no plan. I was probably going to take the easiest option and just return to Thailand from whence I came, but many messages, comments, come to Sri Lanka, please visit Sri Lanka, Bhante. It seems to me like that is what's calling. That's the next step, the next country to go to. And as I haven't been there, and as it's a Buddhist country, it makes sense. And it hopefully will be useful also for you to share this experience of true renunciation, a life where you do not know where you're staying at night from one day to the next, which I do not know and will not know. I've done this quite a few times before. This is nothing new to me. When I came to India, when I went to Thailand, I never know where I'm going. So I will be wandering day to day, and the food you'll get the next day, you never know whether you will be getting it or whether you won't be getting it, and what you'll be getting. You'll be able to see with me and join me by this means each and every moment of that experience, and in some respect, by experiencing that even virtually like this, you do have some benefit of that renunciation yourself. Now this isn't punya, this isn't sharing of merits I'm talking about by my good actions, but in a way that is the practical application of punya, of boon as they call it in Thailand, but punya, sharing of merits. So my practice, my actions of renunciation, meditation, chanting, living the life, the holy life, brahmacharya life of a Buddhist monk, I share all those merits with you. Now, metaphorically, figuratively speaking, in terms of the chanting, when we're chanting imina punya, this chant we do of sharing of merits, that is really just words. But my actions are real. My actions of body, speech and mind are real. And the way I can share that with you on a practical and real way is by this means, as I'm doing, which has come to be now quite easy and natural to me, and as you continue to watch, I will continue to do it. As subscribers continue to subscribe, I will continue to contribute content to this channel, because if it's useful to you, then I'm very happy that I'm of some contribution and use to the world, to you, this community, to Buddhists, to non-Buddhists, to meditators, to non-meditators, to anybody who's interested in an alternative way of life to perhaps what they have, or even as a comparison to their own. And if by sharing that experience of this experience of mine with you helps you just see, oh, well, my life isn't so bad after all compared to that poor guy, or you may see, oh, I'd like to do that too. Either way, it's a real true benefit of my, what I think is meritorious action, being shared with you, you picking it up and using it practically, not in a praying, worshipping, hoping kind of way, in a real, tangible way. And I, in return, am getting from you support in so many ways. Your comments are encouraging me to continue not only in my practice but with doing this, communicating with you, and also always continually with the questions I receive, reviewing my practice, reviewing my view and my intentions, my speech, my actions, my efforts, my mindfulness and my meditation, those 8 points of the Noble Eightfold Path, by you reminding me with your questions about your own practice, your questions about your own practice, reminding me about my practice, what I'm doing, what my actions of body, speech and mind are. So when I go to Pavarana with forgiveness of my actions of body, speech and mind within this little group, this community here at Ketohili, and also within my monastery in the city in Bangalore, I'll also include in my thoughts and my mind you, this community that supports me in the practice I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, with this encouragement and support I get from you, and also some financial contributions which go towards providing this whatever you call this thing I'm doing here on YouTube, because it requires data and sims and this topping up and nonsense that we have to do in order for this all to work smoothly. So we will continue this next last month enjoying this beautiful environment in this wonderful country whilst we can, and I'll continue and enjoy discussing your questions. I have some to go through which will now have to wait until the next talk, and until then, thank you very much for watching, for supporting me and in all the ways you do. And if there's anything useful in what I've said, I really hope you can use it, can share it with others, and really hope that if it's not useful or you're not in agreement with it, you can just let it go, put it down and not let it bother you, but maybe continue to watch and hear something that is in the future. Thank you. Namo Buddhaya. I'm thinking of getting up very gently because I can feel this surface I'm on sinking slowly as I'm speaking. So I don't want to go like Rumpelstiltskin, if you know who he is, straight through the floor. I will arise gently. We are okay. Many more adventures to come in the coming months. I really hope you are along with me on that journey.